Hello, internet and the YouTube. Yeah, the YouTube. I keep saying the when I do this, but I'm not going to do it over. So we're just going to continue. This is
Real
Macabre
professional.
Monthly. Yeah, no, this is improvisational at best. But this is Matt Orozco, and I'm joined with
And Lowell Greenblat is joining you from a different time zone. Are you in a different time
no,
zone or
same
no?
one.
You're right. Us.
Yeah, no,
No.
so we're still the EST. Um,
Uh,
And we're not one of those like that changes. I was just you know, other states where it's like, oh, sometimes they're mountains. They're like Texas, I think, has two or three different time zones in it, which makes
Weird.
sense. It is weird, but it also makes complete sense that it would be in Texas or like in Florida, where like, oh, Florida, there's like three, actual black holes that just live like retired, on the beaches in Tampa, with a small tiki bar or something. But anyway, we are digressing so far away from the topic we may never find our way back. We are here to talk about,
Yeah.
and first, it does, and first celebrate. This is our 10th episode so far. So,
Oh,
wow, two more of these, and it'll be 12, which means a year. So, we're close, but this is we're not popping champagne yet. Maybe some of that non-alcoholic apple cider, the kind they trick you to thinking is champagne when you're little.
no.
Martinelli's.
I need my apple cider in a plastic jug bought from a supermarket or a farmer's market. I don't trust apple cider that comes in a glass bottle that looks like champagne. Be champagne or be nothing. Paraphrase Ron Swanson.
Yeah, I mean that. Well, first of all, let's sell that to Hallmark because that's a card that's going to certainly end up in some 30th birthday card somewhere. But anyway,
Or
we are here to talk about for our 10th episode the top five sequels that went off the rails. I think we will define that and we get there. But we
yep.
are, since we're both based here in the US, it is our Thanksgiving week, a holiday rife with inaccuracies, but seeing as how we do use it as an opportunity to engorge ourselves and enjoy some really amazing food, maybe it's also time we think, hey, well, we're thankful for. Lowell, what movie are you most thankful for so far this year?
So far this year. Uh, it's really tough.
I know.
I mean, 2022. I know people like to say like, "Oh, we're really living in a historic time for horror," but really, like this year is going to be like remembered down the line as like just banger after banger after banger. Um, what would I be thankful for? Even though I thought it was just okay, I'm thankful for Smile for just coming out as an original horror film and just like killing it at like every turn, especially a movie that was originally intended to be on streaming.
Yeah.
Um, just coming out in theaters, like crossing the 200 million mark. That's impressive. I thought it was fine. It had some really cool moments. I'll watch the sequel, but I'm sure people out there really love it. Maybe it's someone's gateway horror, and yeah, just really well done all around. What about you?
Yeah. I don't know. I even when I asked the question, I'm like, I don't even know if I have an answer.
I
Because there
didn't
has
know if
been
I had to think about it.
I
How
know.
dare you spitball on my time, sir?
Listen, I don't know why I just threw this hand around.
Improv. It's
Yeah,
Jack.
and just keep it going, just keep it lively. You know, there's a few I haven't seen that would probably end up on my list. So I feel like it's almost hard to say what like again, I'm not taking this as my favorite movie uh yet, but more so like what am I thankful for that I've seen most. I think I'll probably go with VHS 99 as a placeholder. Which yeah, VHS 99. Um,
They can make a new one of those every year till we're dead. I'd
oh, for
watch
sure.
every.
Hook
Yeah,
it, put it in my veins, mainline it every year. I don't care if you just want to do some obscure year like, 19 I don't know, let's just say like they did 1909. It's like how they have video cameras. It's like, oh, well, like consumer grade video cameras.
time
I don't know.
travel. or
Yeah.
go back to like the phonograph or something.
Yeah. But just play the
Go back to
recordings then. Well, we just follow the hieroglyphs. Listen, I'll take it. I'll take it how they want to serve it, but I'll put that as my placeholder for now, because I really do enjoy those, and even the bad ones are pretty good. So
there's
yeah,
value in all.
well, yeah, there is. Well, on that note, after the Halloween hangover, I'm curious, what movies have you been watching? Have you just given up on horror until then, or has there been anything you've seen?
You
It's like,
shed your
no,
fucking
detox.
there. Um, no, no detox. If anything, I'm playing catch up. Like I said, I saw Smile, it was fine. I saw Slashback, which just came out on Shudder, which is described as Attack the Block meets The Thing, which is
Ooh.
right up my alley, and it was okay. I solid 3 stars. Uh, I'd like to see more of what the director does, but it just kind of felt like it was the raw, like almost like a first draft version of of something that's like a modern Attack the Block. God, modern Attack the Block. It's just 10 years old. What's wrong
I
with
know,
me?
but it feels much older because it's also
Yeah,
so very underseen still.
yeah. The creature design's interesting. The way the aliens work is interesting. The girls in it are cool, but I think they're kind of going for like a more down to earth style approach where it's just like kids hanging out and aliens show up, which is cool. I just thought maybe they'll do more in a sequel because I feel like there would be more to it. But I did like it. I also this morning I watched Orphan First Kill, and
Okay.
I haven't seen the original Orphan, but I know what it's about. I know what happens, um, and it's just absolutely like I almost put it on this list because it's not. I mean, it's not a sequel; it's a prequel, but it just goes off the rails so intentionally hard. Um, it's silly. It's just like it's just a cartoon at a certain point, and for a while, it's just like, I mean, this is okay, but what? There's nothing really new happening here, and then something new happens halfway through, and it goes on a whole new trajectory that turns it into like a movie of the week on steroids. Um, and I dug it. I appreciate that. Not big into the director. He also did this movie that came out last year called Separation, which
Yeah, I've
was
seen that.
just yeah, you're fine. But and he also did the Devil Inside, the movie that ended with the
Hmm.
website. So don't really know what his deal is, but good for him for still being able to make movies. Keeping it light.
Just light.
I also saw a film that messed me up real good or real bad. That I don't even know. I don't even know if I could recommend it because I don't want to do that to you or to whoever. But it's so good. It's one of my favorite films of the year, horror and otherwise. It's called Soft and Quiet. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've heard it's rough,
Yeah,
but it's
and
also very good, like very
yeah,
effective.
yeah, it's great. And it's the kind of movie where, just like a quick rundown, it's mostly shot in a single take, or it's shot to look like a single take. I don't think they could have done it all continuously. Let me know if you can hear my dog barking. Who's not getting neutered tomorrow, so he gets to keep his energy for a little bit longer. Um,
Oh,
so it's just a day in the life of this group of women, white suburban women from kind of different walks of life who meet for a meeting of the gals in a church, and you realize that they're all white supremacists, and they're talking about ways to sort of make the world a better place. Um, and it's really really disturbing in just how like casual it is. Like it's easy to see a version of this like from like Ryan Murphy or something that's just like arch and like heightened and just goes off, goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
but it's all about the banality of evil. And like each one of the women in the group is sort of like a different flavor of 21st century white supremacist women. Like, you have an
All the
ex-con, you
colors
have,
of the racist rainbow.
yeah, exactly. Just white, just different shades of off white. Um, and it starts with them meeting and they're like, oh, I'm so glad I can talk about this. And it's like, the 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 feeling in my stomach was just like, ugh. And then I remembered this is a horror movie, and this isn't even really the horror that would get it mentioned someplace like Shudder, or I mean, Jason Blum picked it up because it affected him that much. But it does eventually turn into like more of a horror movie than what you're watching. And it just moment to moment is just, it just gets worse. I mean, it's great, but in terms of like the feeling that you get, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's like, oh no, oh, they're doing that. Oh, they're going there. Okay. Okay. And it's so good, but it's just, and it's a tricky balancing act with something like that.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I said,
like
but
I was
I
gonna
thought,
ask you, like, do you feel like it's poking the bear, or is it kicking the hornet's nest, or is kind of provoking for a purpose?
no, I
Like, is
mean,
it
I
trying to
think
be
for,
transgressive just to be transgressive, like a la Serbian film, where like the point is to like make
no,
the most
no, 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 no.
audacious movie
I
ever?
think this is more along the lines of Martyrs territory. Not that it's not bloody or gory at all, but just in terms of the way that I always feel the director of Martyrs, like that movie's really messed up and bloody and all that. But I feel like it's made by someone who has like a message and has an idea and an ethos and knows what they're doing, and that like and has a specific intention that's
Yeah.
beyond just like messing us up. Um, and I felt that with this.
Hmm.
Like I said, it could have been easy just to make something that just like pokes the
Exploitative.
bear, yeah, and just descends into, and it's like, and you might be going into it like, well, yeah, white women, like, if they showed up in 2016, we really, if they showed up in 2016,
Yeah.
suburban white women, but no, but it's like, but it shows like, I mean, I keep going back to the phrase and the word insidious, that it just shows like how permissive this is, and how you just need a group of these people to get together to like set each other off, and to, because like one of the scariest things is like how happy they are to finally be in a group of like-minded people. And it's like, I think it was George Carlin who said, beware of idiots in large numbers.
Yeah.
And they're not large, not a large number, but it's just like, it was I think I described it as like, it makes Michael Haneke look like Ted Lasso. Um, and look, I'm not saying it's better than a Haneke movie, but just like, it feels very real and very immediate and very like, oh my god.
I
So
I do
yeah,
wonder, I think I mean, I think it's pretty clear that what's happening in the outside world obviously influences the art we see, but I always wonder what this will look like 10 years from now. How will not only our eyes but also fresh eyes look at like the art, like the yeah, the art, like this call that came out of this time. Um, and I always wonder if people who weren't around will be able to understand the context well enough to understand why, like, because if you take just like a very like transgressive film out of context, you're like, what the hell is this?
no, but it feels. I mean, I don't think they say Trump's name at all, but it just feels like it really could be set almost at any time.
Hmm.
Like the stuff that they're talking about is like evergreen.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Where's
and
it playing?
I saw it on demand, so I think
Okay,
it's
so you
on
like
like
rent it?
Vudu. Yeah, I rented it.
Okay, cool.
Totally worth it. I needed to chase it with Wakanda Forever, which was a great idea, and not horror, but I loved it. It got me.
Yeah,
Just freaking got me.
I've heard right
Yeah,
there in the
but
right there in the field.
yeah, it's soft and quiet. Fucks your shit right up, and very good, very effective. Yeah,
Well, I'll have to save that for an absolutely beautiful day to ruin. Just like it's a perfect day outside. Let's put
yeah.
on this.
Maybe take some mushrooms first. Take some psychedelics, and then really just dive into it.
I would be worried about what my absolutely lucid brain would interpret all of that as. It'd probably feel like an assault. But that kind of discomfort is reserved for music festivals and really bad camping trips. So
Or really
um
good camping trips.
yeah, I guess yeah, I guess. um well, I checked out a few things. I was on a plane yesterday and I was actually going to watch Orphan First Kill. And then I just kind of remembered everyone had told me, no one told me exactly what happens, but more just that it's probably not something you want to be watching in a crowd of other people for them to judge and observe. But I chose this movie Watcher, which I kind of saw floating around Shutter and they happen to have on the plane. I'm kind of felt I was pretty lukewarm on this one, and I was a little baffled when I looked at it's kind of the broader letterboxed uh arena of judgment, and I was like, a lot of people seem to like this more than I did. It's very much like a nice looking movie that tells a story that has been told before with a point that I think, it's not like I guess it's not the point that's the problem in the movie. It's just it doesn't really do much until the last 10 minutes. And even those 10 minutes are like, oh. So I guess like it's not much of a horror movie as much as it is like this is what maybe like a real life thriller might be like, semi-stylized. And even then, I think part of the reason why entertainment is stylized is because in order to entertain, life can be boring. Um, even things that are like violent. But anyway, it's not like it's a bad movie, I guess. It just didn't really do much for me. And I felt like you're constantly waiting for something to happen. And then when it does, you're like, oh well, no duh. Like I can't, like, you're almost like these characters are just outright like they're almost absurdly ignorant about what's going on, or at least just like their reactions to things. Like anyway, but I think mileage may vary depending on how much you like those kind of like very slow, very, very slow, like almost no burn. And
It
then
looks like a '90s thriller from like what I've seen. Like
but a
like
bad
sort
one. Like just because
yeah.
it doesn't like it's a lot of just very long kind of following scenes, and there's a lot of just tension. I kind of equate it to like the edging equivalent in horror, where it's like you're just like, okay, you're keeping me going for what? Like you keep this tension going, and then you get there and you're like, all right, well, yeah, that was it. Like, come on, I think I lost it. So I don't know how Sting does this, but anyway, that was okay. Then I watched on the plane, going there, Bodies, 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 which
Yeah, I watched that too. I forgot to mention. What did you think?
it's so like, okay, all right. I don't know if I absolutely
Wait.
hate
Let
them.
me get off your lawn first. Hold on.
Yeah, hold on. There's kids out there playing. I think I understood what they were doing, but it's kind of like nails on a chalkboard. And I get like they were just digging the finger in the bruise so much about how terrible these people are. And the ending to me, I was like, that is so fucking lame. Like it makes some sense,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also really fucking lame. And it's not like they didn't earn it. I don't think that's true. It's just for me, like, it's obvious art subjective, but the characters
Mm-hmm.
themselves like perfectly played up to be exactly what like they're making fun of. And um
Mm-hmm.
I think I laughed at like one part like out loud, but it was a very, very small laugh. I just wish it went for like more a lot of the kills were kind of off screen or very lightly touched on. And I'm kind of like, I wish you would have doubled down on that. But I guess it's PG-13, right? Or is it? No, it's R.
I think it's R,
No, it's R.
but yeah, I feel like
There's nudity in it. There's R.
if the killings were more explicit and like more gory, then the ending would hit that much harder.
Yes.
Because like I think it made me laugh, but then I was like, oh,
It's
they're
like a
all
Rube
such
Goldberg machine of like bad things happening. It's like,
yeah,
look at all that play. It's like, it's like,
but it
yeah,
works because it's so shitty. Like, of course, that would be like, of course you would realize that. And I mean, the visual of it is just it's really funny. I laughed. I did want more out of it, but I'm like, okay, if that's what we're doing, that's fine. You've proved your thesis. I didn't
yeah.
know that's what I was getting, but it still could have been bloodier and had the same or greater impact.
I
You
didn't
know,
hate it is the thing. Like I definitely,
yeah.
I had the most interesting reaction because I'm like, I really don't like this movie, but I
Mm.
also would not disagree with anyone who said they did like it because I could understand how somebody could like this movie and there, I would have no judgment on them because like, but just for me, just the way it all plays out, I'm like, ugh, I would never watch this again. Like, do I regret watching it? Absolutely not. But I'm like, okay, like it's
Just
like a
it doesn't match the hype. I would say,
yes.
like it seems like there was a lot of hype around it, and it's fine. Once again, 3 stars, but I'm not. It's not making my list or anything.
And there's so many other movies that take that kind of approach of like that, again, avoiding the spoilers, like that kind
Mm.
of ending. There's other movies that do that and do it much better. And I don't want to list them off because that again kind of gets it into like what happens, but it kind of takes that, what you expect, flips it on its hand in kind of a quirk, a witty or clever way. But yeah, I just feel like it's been done better. And I again don't hate anyone that I don't think there's any reason for. And I totally get why people like it, not for me. But I know that it made a bunch of money and people liked it, so we'll get more of something like that. The onion that is the Knives Out and adjacent, and Knives
So
Out and
collect
Ready or Not clones.
where yeah.
So then I saw the menu this week,
Oh,
which
how would
I liked it. It's not a perfect movie by far, and I don't even think it wants to be a perfect movie. It's kind of like if Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola is like this very classy art version of Dracula. Like this is like the John Carpenter's vampires version of like Eat the Rich. It's like it's not in any way trying to be subtle or clever in relation to like the point it's trying to make, but really what you're watching is just these really awesome actors just chewing scenery in some cases or showing a lot of really clever restraint. And so you're just watching these actors just ham it up in this absurd situation. And I never really understood. um I always thought Anya Taylor-Joy was striking, but I never really found her attractive. This movie did it. I was like, okay, I think not to be crass, but like I was just like, I get it now. I get it. But
yeah, welcome.
it's a fun movie. I like think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely something to watch with other people because I think it's just kind of thing to get a kick out of. It's beautifully shot, like just because it is kind of half food porn, half food, like half Chef's Table meets Canterbury Tale. So yeah, I dug it. And again, another instance where I wish it would have doubled down a little more on some of
Mm.
the horror side of it because it is more horror comedy than it is like a thriller comedy because of just how
Mm.
absurd and kind of set up this stuff is. It's like when Saw films, you're like, there's no way that an average person could fucking do this, like create a Rube Goldberg machine of death, like over here. Just, but anyway, that was fun. On your advisement, I watched VHS 99, which
Mm.
I enjoyed thoroughly. I yeah, I don't think I hated any of the entries. The last one is definitely the standout. But they're all pretty just like all these VHS of all the anthology movies, even the ones that are boring in this one, I'm able to watch and feel like they kind of move at a pretty good pace. Some of the
Mm.
editing in this one is a little bit like, whoa, like I'm not epileptic, but I might be now.
Yeah,
But
that first I was like, I got the idea behind it, but I was like really struggling to see what was going on. And I know it's like a 90s aesthetic and they're like dumbass teenagers or 20 something.
CKY.
But like, yeah, but I was like, no, I want to see what you're doing because I kind of like this idea, but it's still kind of a wash a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I really disliked any of the segments, but I mean, I felt
The
like
second and the
Ozzy.
last one, I think, were my favorites. Like the second one with the initiation was ah,
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah,
And
absolutely. And like just yeah, so good.
but the Flying Lotus segment went to a place I didn't think it needed to go.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, oh, like it's like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of thing. That's interesting for found footage. And then it just went to like, what are we doing? What are
Yeah,
we doing?
it
But
just
maybe
it's
I'll watch it upon a rewatch.
I mean, I think the no, I agree with you. I think that the premise was so good that I'm like, why didn't you just stay there? Like, why
Yeah.
didn't you just like stick with this? Like, but at the end of the day, like, I didn't not enjoy it. I just was like, okay, you've gone so far that like you've lost me a little bit, and that's okay. Like, keep going, but I'm just waiting for you to stop. It's kind of like I'm over this ride. But I don't mind sitting on it until it ends. Um, so keep those coming. On that note, I'm gonna just give a quick plug for Two Witches because I did watch that, and that it's not like a 2022 movie. I think it was made 2020 or 2021, but it was just released by Arrow. Outstanding, very much like Evil Dead, inspired Raimi, but it definitely is interesting storytelling, lots of fun. Definitely the
Okay.
kind of thing you want to watch with like the lights off, just kind of set the mood, and some great performances. But I did watch all but one of the Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities episodes. Have you seen
Oh, me
these?
too. I haven't seen the last one.
Yeah, I haven't seen the
Uh,
last one either.
yeah, but
What are your like what's your favorite and what's your least favorite so far?
oh shit. Um, I feel like I need to rewatch the first one again because like I liked it enough, but I feel like it was kind of surpassed as it went along. Um, my favorite would, oh man, that's tough. I really liked Anna Lily Amirpour's, um, The Outside.
Yeah,
Like just when I think about that show, like
it's
that's kind
weird.
of like I think of. Honestly, I confuse the two direct Lovecraft adaptations a little bit, but but the one with Crispin Glover, God, Pickman's
Hickman's
model,
model.
Pickman's model, I did really like, but yeah, maybe that would be the preferable one. I don't think. I guess if I had to rank them, the first one or Dreams in the Witch House would be the last, or actually no, because I'm okay. Panos Cosmatos is great, but he just took too fucking long to get where he was going. And when he gets there, it's great. But in terms of
Mhm.
like overall segments, if I'm thinking about which ones I'd rather watch again, that one's a little farther down the list. But it's great to see him work again.
Yeah.
So, but what about you?
I mean, I think my favorite one is the second one, the
The
grave
rats.
robber, the rats one. That thing just fucks. That thing fucks
Yeah.
hard. Like, and it's funny. Like it does everything that a good like it's like a Tales from the Crypt episode, but like with Netflix money. And I had an absolute
Which
blast
is
with
what
it.
Creep Show should be anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really should be. And
Yeah.
and like I almost wished it was a little longer, which is not something I usually say. But like I was like, I could do more. I could do more with this. And I don't really like rat horror normally. Like it's not like something I gravitate towards. But you know what? Fucking that and Of Unknown Origin, sign me up with those movies about rats. And I think my least favorite is probably um well, so maybe one of your favorites is my least favorite, the Pickman's Model one, but only because it took me 4 times to watch it. I kept
Yeah,
not being
it's a
able to
little
get
off.
through it, and like it kept losing me a little bit, and it finally kind of there were moments I was like, okay, that's cool, but then it like jumps away. The Panos one, I didn't hate it, but I also felt like the general thing that happens when these guys make movies, Ari Aster, Panos Cosmatos, Oh my God, The Witch,
Robert
Robert
Eggers.
Eggers, like these, these new auteurs are always going to get the benefit of hype, but the problem that unfortunately doesn't help them and help folks like Quentin Tarantino is like there's a controlled message that happened before the internet was so ubiquitous, and now it's like you get overwhelmed. So I just think it's like the benefit of like a bad hype cycle. It's not
Yeah,
perfect, but the thing I enjoy about it is like this is like a, I don't know when it's supposed to take place. It's the 70s, 90s. It's the 70, 80, 90s. And there's like this weird cocaine. And I'm like, you know what? This is like a hangout movie. This is like a Panos Cosmatos hangout movie that happens to go to a very strange place. And I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like it's like the equivalent of Panos Cosmatos doing the version of, "Hey, my dad has something cool. You want to see it?" I'm like, and
yeah,
so
I can kind of see that.
and
Mhm.
so it's like it's just
I don't think
his
anyone was
view.
prepared for.
No, and like
Yeah,
his view of reality is like, or at least his the world that he creates. It's kind of like, Ari Aster still operates in the real world, just in his filmmaking. Robert Eggers kind of makes his so contained to periods that it's like, say for the Lighthouse, you're just like, okay, this explicitly exists in this
I
time
mean,
and place.
even Lighthouse was, I think, like the 18 or 19 something. But yeah, no, I know what you mean.
And then but then like Panos Cosmatos is like, hey, I'm gonna make this really cool fairy tale, but it's gonna exist in this world that I dreamed up on acid while watching Hellraiser. It's like, you know what? Fucking sign me up. But like this is like, hey, I watched The Big Lebowski and I thought I could do a version of that, And so I think it's just he's weird and it's strange, and I appreciate that, but I also think it's more like I definitely could see like it doesn't deliver on what it's going for, but I just happen to enjoy the way it gets there more so than anything else. So yeah,
Yeah,
I just, and the last one is just I'm not sure why I've been taking so long to watch it. I think it's because
yeah,
they just kind of
either.
get progressively less interesting. But I do want them
Yeah,
to make more, and I do love that
yeah.
my boy Guillermo just like does an intro Rod Sterling style, just like gets up there and is like tells us a little story, opens a little cabinet, more of him telling us stuff,
Yeah.
please.
I mean, I'd be happy if Guillermo del Toro introduced every piece of media that I watched from
Yes.
here on.
It's like, you like
I'm
monsters? You
Guillermo
like
del Toro.
monsters?
This is Bullet Train. let's,
Yes.
let's do this.
I just love that
Uh,
Netflix is pouring all this money on him too, because I really want to see his Pinocchio, um, the stop motion one. But
yeah.
we could gush over Guillermo all day, but we have some news to get to. All right. So, as is obvious by now, Lowell and I are um, contributors to this amazing site, Macabre Daily. You can check us out at macabredaily.com or at Macabre Daily on Instagram, at Macabre Daily on the ruined city that was Twitter. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like watching what happened to Detroit on the internet. But
It's like the Beyond when they like go down into the basement. That's that's Twitter.
just subterranean, where it's funny, but in a really depressing way. So, anyway, we got some news that we're going to cover from the past month. Killer Clowns from Outer Space game is coming out. Looks to be very similar in the asymmetric multiplayer style, a la Friday 13th, the game, a la Evil Dead.
Mm.
Lowell, what are your thoughts on Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game?
I mean, I always liked the movie. It was never like a favorite, but I think it's cool. I will try it out. I just kind of want my horror games. Like, I'm kind of done with asymmetrical horror. Like
Heavy plus. Yeah.
and I mean, it's great if those games could have multiplayer modes or asymmetrical online modes, like going forward. But like, you know, I don't need to freaking play online with people with connectivity issues and like it just seems like a lot. I'm here for the single player missions.
Yeah.
Even though I still can't get past that first one in Evil Dead. But it's still fun to play, even though I get my ass handed to me. But no, I mean I think the Kyoto brothers are a part of this, right?
Very
So
much so. They've been very involved with the design. In fact, when I was at Horror Hound, they showed a bunch of concept drawings that they had created for this and stuff that's not in this one and maybe in later stuff. So, I mean, I appreciate that it's getting some attention. I agree with you though that the asymmetrical multiplayer stuff is kind of tired because it's not really doing any. I mean, I realize that this will have, they each are kind of slightly tweaking the formula. It's kind of like those rogue like Metroidvania games. Like everyone's doing something a little different, but in this case, I feel like the differences are so marginal that unless you really like this kind of like format, there's not a
Mhm.
lot of a draw. And I would have loved more of an investment in a single player story as well. Because really good
Yeah.
horror games, like, they can be outstanding. Like, and I also have an aversion to some multiplayer generally, but it's a personal preference. Anyway, I'll probably play it. I'll probably buy it because it support the cause. But I'm curious to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts on this one. The A24 Friday the 13th prequel. I've learned all about how this is kind of it's a boring story, but basically they cannot use any form of I think they can't use adult Jason in any movies, but apparently TV shows are okay. Uh, but yeah, what do you feel about the A24 prequel
So
series?
is it really like the A24 of it all is what confounds me more than anything? Like they're the production company. Is that like
Yeah,
Brian
so it's kind of like Paramount's the distributor. They're like the ones that are like, hey, we're gonna pony up some money for this, and then A24 is like the creative production. They're kind of I guess they're just kind of the production house for this.
I
I don't know
mean,
how it really works.
I look, I'm gonna watch it. I love Brian Fuller. I wonder who's gonna run the second season of this, which is a joke that I saw online because I don't know if you know. I love Brian Fuller, but he tends to walk away from stuff that he creates. Hopefully, it doesn't happen here, but who knows what it's like to work on something with Sean S. Cunningham for a long ass time.
He's not
Or
involved. I don't
is it?
think.
It's because Victor Miller did Victor Miller win the
Yeah,
lawsuit? Like,
so Cunningham is basically like he's the one who owns the rights to film, but Miller retains all creative control of like the characters. So
okay,
he can use them. Like I can essentially Cunningham lost, it sounds like, and Victor Miller kind of came out ahead, but I think there's still some bits and bobs being debated. And I was incorrect. This is on Peacock, so that means it's NBC. So in my mind, say just like A24 is producing this, and then Peacock's just like, hey, we're gonna pay you for it. Like it could have been Netflix, could have been Paramount Plus, but well, I guess yeah, it's weird that it's not Paramount Plus because they're the franchise holders for.
yeah, that's
So
weird. I just want to go on record as saying that
will
I
this be
will watch.
good?
I don't know because
There's no precedent for A24 film or for
there's no
TV.
precedent for a Friday the 13th TV series. There's a Friday the 13th TV series should not exist. Not the anthology thing they did in the 80s, but you can't turn Jason Voorhees and Camp Crystal Lake into a serialized, because what? Then every episode is just gonna maybe if you made it a mini series and each episode was like a mini movie, so it was like the greatest hits of all of the movies, and then it eventually ends. But I don't give a shit about the people in Crystal Lake. Are you kidding me? We never see them anyway. Are they just
I,
sitting like on their porches, like, well, that's Jason's at it again. Sold some beer to some kids. Probably won't see them again. Like
I feel like this is going to be less of a horror show and more of a drama because if you think about it,
uh,
what's
no,
the climax of this story? Jason dying, and in order for it to get to that point, and that means that Pamela Voorhees is not violent until then. It's not like Crystal Lake was a bad place until this happened. This is the genesis of all that happened, all that happens after Friday 13th. So it almost sounds like this is just going to be like, a Ryan Murphy esque take on Crystal Lake, like a lot of sexed up teenagers
balls. You're killing
fucking
me.
around. I mean, I don't
Wasn't
know.
that already a season of American Horror Story?
There was
Like
there was I didn't see
it
it,
was
but there was
a camp
a
one.
yeah camp slasher. I mean, there is some precedent series wise because there is the show Slasher, which is not actually as bad of a concept as it sounds. There's a quite a it's quite good actually. Like especially this previous season was not bad at all. It's a little too long, but that's okay. Another problem for another day. I will certainly watch this. I don't think it's going to be good though.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think there's a lot to do with it. I agree with you.
They can't all be Chucky.
Nope, they can't. And I still need to watch season 2. So we need to get I need to get on that so
Oh
we can get on that.
God, it's I like we were saying about Guillermo del Toro before. Just real quick about the second season of Chucky. I would love it if Don Mancini would just introduce every episode as if he's just as if like you're zooming in on a movie screen and he like turns around like, hello, I'm Don Mancini, welcome back, you're not going to believe this shit, and then just go into it, because in every episode is just like a holy shit really, but in the best possible way. And it's he makes Seed of Chucky work anyway. I'm gonna save that for later, but
I need to get on it.
Yeah.
All right. More prequels coming our way, but the Pennywise prequel, Welcome to Derry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was just a knee-jerk reaction.
No, I'm with you. This can fuck all the way off as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I just don't need it. Just don't need it.
Yeah. We don't need it.
No. Like, and I the worst part about when horror does well is this kind of shit. And I will eat my words right now. I will say that I will eat my words. If this show is good, I will go back and I will apologize, and I will do so sincerely. But for the current moment, this is to me the epitome of cash grabbing. And there's no to me there's no story to tell. Like there's no interesting story because we know that Pennywise is going to, like, he exists. Like there's no like killing evil. Evil's not going to lose. So I don't know. What I know your visceral reaction. What else are you thinking about it?
Just why? I mean, maybe if Stephen King was involved and he had some kind of prequel story to tell. I mean, I don't like prequels in general, but like this just seems like especially dumb. Like Pennywise is just going to kill whoever comes after him. I mean, what are we going to see the house on Nebold Street when it was like a nice, upstanding, a hotel in Derry? Ooh, like no, just fuck off. We don't need this. Why when the new It movies have proven that you can do an excellent modern Nightmare on Elm Street movie today, are we going back to this well? Why? That's
all. Why?
But if it's great, I'll eat my words as well.
I genuinely think that this has a lot to do with the HBO Max, like the Warner stuff or the divesting of companies, the Discover merger, because of HBO only focusing on, well, now the strategy is focused on big properties, of which it would be one. I just think they're trying to pimp horror, and she's not that kind of girl. So, and then speaking of sequels that no one asked for, Red State 2 coming our way. And I don't hate Red State. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
His best directed movie, I think.
And he can make a good horror movie like this. I think that I don't think I walked away with a bad impression of Red State, but I also walked away thinking like, I've seen this. Like this is, there's nothing about this that challenges the genre, the tropes. And you know what? But it's a very competently made movie. But Red State 2, I mean, can he pull off subtle?
I mean, okay, I was one of the biggest Kevin Smith fans ever growing up. I drove to Red Bank, New Jersey to find the locations of his films and go to his comic book store, The Secret Stash. If you told me in 8th grade there would be 3 Clerks films, like my mind would be blown. I haven't seen the 3rd one yet. There was some really good stuff in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. and his heart's in the right place. And I feel like Kevin Smith himself is living his best life, and
Yeah.
I'm really happy for him. But he, as a filmmaker, is not what he once was, um, and just fine. But like, if he goes back to his red state, I guess, like if he can reach inside himself and pick out the version of himself that made the first red state, I think you could make a sequel. Not a direct sequel, probably not with any of the returning characters, John Goodman or not, but like, yeah, you can absolutely make a red state 2 in today's day and age. And I wonder what that would be like. I don't need it, but I will be curious about it, and I will
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
I I guess I want it to be good because I'm with you all the way. Like I
I
was a
always
big
want Kevin Smith movies to be good. Always. Yoga Hosers really bit me, but
I mean,
I
but
was
I
like,
think it's just and I like you, like when I saw Clerks, that movie changed my fucking mind about like that was the first true independent movie I remember ever seeing that I was like consciously aware of. And I think I watched that movie more times than I did as many times I watched movies like Halloween. And I think Mallrats is still an underrated. Oh, we have a little visitor here. Um, Mallrats is still one of the most underrated films of all time in his catalog.
I
I think
still
it,
have the Criterion DVD of Chasing Amy.
I
I'm
mean,
not getting
Chasing
it.
Amy's great. It's fantastic movie. It's like The Rock. It's like the criterions of The Rock and RoboCop. Like those are things that like you just have to hold on to for posterity's sake. But anyway,
Well, RoboCop's on Arrow now, but yes, I know what you
yeah. But
mean.
I will watch a Red State too. I
Yeah,
agree with you. If you know if he's able to take kind of, but that's why I asked you about the subtlety because I don't think Kevin. I think that's where Kevin Smith tends to be less effective. Is he's not very good at kind of
mm-hmm.
the you know, subtext. His subtext is text. And when he's making fun of something, and he's lost a lot of his tact over the years because I think the resources have increased. Um, but anyway, like I don't want to pick on him because I like Kevin Smith quite a bit and I want the things he does to be good, but
Yeah.
trepidation ahead. In other news, big merger of two people who already make movies together now just saying we're going to make movies together more. Um,
Yeah,
good
I
for
don't know
them.
why they're. Yeah, good for them. I don't know why, um, but good for them. You
Yeah,
know, it would
yeah.
be like, New Line Cinema and Vestron teaming up, I guess, for an '80s 1-to-1.
But I always wonder if that like, it's kind of like in the spirit of competition mentality. Now, I'm not against the old merger and acquisition, if you will, but
Mhm.
there's a part of me that like when I hear things like we're going to be a horror factory, I think that was his quote. I'm like, that sounds to me like you're going to mass produce trash. Like, and
Yeah,
right now,
Blumhouse does that. Sorry, but like, you know what Jason Blum's model is. I mean, most of the shitty ones you don't hear about, but if someone makes a Blumhouse movie, it will get distribution. Like, it will be seen. Maybe not in theaters, maybe on VOD, maybe on just streaming or some obscure streaming platform, but it will come out. And those, I've seen some really terrible films put out by Blumhouse. It's
yeah,
just, I guess, the nature of his business model. So, I mean, we're still going to see the good ones theatrically.
yeah, and I
So
and
I
I
don't
and I don't
know.
think that James Wan's also the like the antidote to Jason Blum. Like I think James Wan has a lot more creative cred than Jason Blum does, but I also don't necessarily think that he's as consistent. I mean, he's as consistent. I put it this way: James Wan is as consistent as Blumhouse's catalog, so maybe there's some alignment there.
I
Um,
mean, James Wan did Insidious for Blumhouse.
yeah, and they've worked
So,
together a lot
Blumhouse,
before. So this is like a this is just this sounds like this is about money, but we shall see.
yeah, I'm like, is one of them in debt or something? Like, this doesn't, they, they don't,
Malignant
they don't,
put James Wan into debt. Who knows? I mean, it's getting
they
a
don't
sequel, so I can't imagine that's the case.
Wait, is it really?
Pretty
Malignant's
sure.
getting. I hope so.
Well, I don't know. I don't want
So
to spread rumors, but I don't, and I
yeah.
don't remember if I where I heard that. So if it's my brain just making it up, disregard me. This is the last bit of news we're gonna get into. New a possible Escape from New York sequel looks like it's in the works by the Radio Silent, aka Radio Not, aka Scream Five Cream,
uh,
aka Sex Cream. Um, uh, uh,
Let them try. That's what I say. People have been trying to remake this movie forever. Let them try. You know, I was interested when Robert Rodriguez was gonna take a crack at it. I thought that could be really cool.
and he's probably the
Um,
best suited. He would have been the best suited to do it because essentially,
he
Escape
is
from
Baby
LA is
Driver.
just Desperado in a dystopian future. Well, other way around. Desperado is Escape from New York in Mexico.
Kinda. Yeah, I
Not
guess you
so
could
much
say.
in the some of the prop, but like the way the whole story plays out, action
Yeah,
scene to action scene.
that's true. And I mean, Planet Terror is, all John Carpenter. Like before we were, making tributes to John Carpenter, that one was like the most John Carpenter film, John Carpenter, never John Carpenter. Um, but I heard it was actually to take you back. I read a review of one of the remake scripts on Ain't It Cool years and years ago, and it actually sounded kind of interesting. Like it started with a flashback of the Duke of New York getting off a prison ship in New York before he was like the Duke, and looking around and being like, "I'm going to make this place my own." And just I think there there are definitely ways to do this, but you don't want to fire starter yourself and just like because Escape from New York has been cannibalized by so many movies over the years, like especially some of the Purge movies. So it there's a way to do it to make it seem fresh and original, but there's also a way to do it that will remind you of everything else that has ripped off the original. I don't know if the Radio Silence guys can do it. I don't know if anyone can do it, but let them try. Let them try. Let them fight.
I mean, I distinctly remember the end of Escape from LA being Snake turning off the power for the entire world.
Uh,
So
that is one of Carpenter's best
yes,
endings.
yes, it
I
is.
love it.
Which is why, like, there is. I mean, if you're going to do a sequel to Escape from LA and not do this, if we're being honest and we're being good about this, you do not deserve to leapfrog Escape from LA if you're going to make a direct sequel to Escape from New York. You have to acknowledge
No,
both as canon, and so
but
as such,
it's not a sequel. It's a remake,
is it?
right?
Well,
For
there's no
professional.
script. There's no script, so it's kind of like this is more of like rumor mill. Is
Yeah.
that there's interest to do this now? I
Oh,
would
it's from
it
Robot. All right.
yeah.
Um,
So
grain of salt.
grains of
Um,
salt. But if this were to happen, I agree. It's not impossible, but it definitely requires a very adept hand at managing the material to do something new, but also with enough relevance and familiarity to keep us glued. So, to our
yeah.
topic at hand today, top 5 sequels that went off the rails. So, Lowell, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what that means? Like, what does went off the rails mean in this case?
Um, I guess as I came up with my list, it became a little elastic, but I really meant it to be sort of a way, um, you know, films in a franchise, they sort of follow like a certain template. Like I wouldn't put any of the Saw movies on here because they're all so like,
Saw movies.
yeah, Saw all the way to Jigsaw and Spirals and Saw 3D. They all fit together, which is very impressive, especially for a series that's gone that far. But I sort of went to think, okay, what has been established by the film or films that has come before it? What does an audience expect out of the fifth entry, the seventh entry, the second entry? if there even is or did they just not expect it at all? So where 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 did this go to make people go, huh? But in a good way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the only rule I kept to a similar process of thinking which movie in a franchise totally just said, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this. And just went for broke. And I think the only rules we set for this were no repeating. So you can't do like Halloween 3 and Halloween Ends, for example.
Yes. Halloween
But
Ends didn't make my list, but
and you know what? It shouldn't. There's a good reason for that because it's been done before by a movie that I will mention today.
okay.
But anyway, why don't you kick us off with your and did you put yours in any particular order or is this just kind of randomized?
I
Like
decided to
most off the rails to least off the rails.
no, I mean I think I just put them in an order of enjoyment, I
Okay.
should say. Like my number five, I mean, yeah, definitely my number five isn't a good movie by any stretch, but it's so much fun and just so watchable. And yeah, just to get into it, it's Friday the 13th Part 5 in the beginning, which is the one where it's not actually Jason. Although, really, if you look at the mythology in later films, you can say it's the spirit of Jason or whatever. But
There was
yeah,
no heart eating.
no.
Doesn't count.
Well, I mean, he was a paramedic. I mean, who knows? You know, who knows what he came across? But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's one of the sleaziest mainstream horror movies I've ever seen. It's so close to being porn with death scenes, um, which isn't necessarily why I like it, but it's just so sleazy and gnarly, and it's just and it is a Friday the 13th movie until the very end when you're like, what is this imposter shit? What are you doing? And it's dumb and it's just an excuse to do something different. But the movie itself, maybe because it is so like hackneyed and sleazy, is just a joy to watch. I mean, there's a reason why there are so many t-shirts that say those damn enchiladas on it. It's every scene is a new opportunity to be like, what? And it pays dividends. I think it might have the highest on-screen body count of the series too.
I think it
I might
does.
be wrong, but it's just like their character, like, and it's like stuff that feels like what would be a reshoot in a movie today. It's just like, here are two characters that have absolutely nothing to do with anything else. Oh, and now they're dead. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and more watchable than some of the ones that actually have Jason in them. But yeah.
Well, as it turns out, your fifth shares something in common with mine in that it is in the same franchise, but it does have actually the most kills of any Friday the 13th movie of all time, which is Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Um, this
Yeah.
is Halloween Ends before Halloween Ends. It's the same fucking premise, except trauma is a literal body part that you eat. And I think, yeah, and I defend this movie not because it's a good movie, because there's so many reasons that it's not, and there's so much about it that is just like the dialogue from Creighton Duke is outrageously funny, but also outrageously not how anybody would ever talk at any point in time, especially to anybody else, without getting like shot at some point at an early age. Like he just wouldn't be able to live that long, no matter how good he is. But
break fingers at an early age.
Yeah, like it's just like but the premise is so not good, but because of that, I think they kind of know, and they're just like, fine, let's just make this the most killingest movie in the franchise with this absolutely absurd body horror premise where you get, I think, the least amount of screen time for a franchise killer in almost any franchise movie. But the opening is pretty awesome. And seeing Jason blown to literal bits is pretty entertaining. But I think this is such a big swing, not because, and I'm half joking when I say it's the original Halloween Ends, because I don't think that argument totally checks out, but I'm just, I have a bone to pick with the ends, and I happen to like this one. Sue me. But this one it's just a lot of stupid fun. And I think that's why it's so like you can watch it and be like, none of this matters at all. But just like Jason X, just because none of it matters doesn't mean you can't have a good time watching it. And if you forget that it's like a Friday 13th movie, it's like it probably should be more like a Friday 13th episode, or an episode of the Friday 13th anthology series.
Mhm.
But it's not a good movie, but it definitely swings for the fences, and definitely has the least amount of Jason one could do with advertising Jason right on the cover and all the art. So,
Just the bare minimum.
but yeah, literal bear, like least amount of flair you could put on that horror movie right there.
Mhm.
Not even going to be like Halloween Ends over there and add more flair. But I digress. That's my number 5. So what's your number 4?
My number 4, little bit of a grower. We talked about it on another episode. It's still low on my franchise list for that, but I will say Seed of Chucky has grown on me. I mean,
Mine's higher. Seed of
talk,
Chucky's higher for me.
talk about swings. I mean, I think it's the first entry where like the dolls are the protagonists. Like Katherine Heigl and what's his face are, you can say they're kind of the main characters of Bride of Chucky.
They're kind of
But
shit heels.
yeah, and they're like nothing characters even. It's like you can tell Don Mancini really wanted Chucky and Tiffany and Glenn to be the main people, and or Chucky and Tiffany and now Glenn. But like, God, that ending of Bride of Chucky when you see the baby, it's like, oh, this is the end of the franchise. They're not gonna. Oh no, they are. They're gonna make a whole movie out of it, which is also what every episode of the Chucky TV series is, where it's like, wow, you're really you're creating a quilt of madness, and it's great. But yeah, it's campy. It's practically a musical. It's not a musical, but like it's screaming for a musical
It
number.
definitely has some musical aspects to it.
Yeah, and it's just it's silly, and the ending doesn't really make much sense, but it's a lot of fun, and it's Jennifer Tilly having what I can imagine is like the most fun she's ever had in her entire career. So it puts a smile on my face. Good for Don Mancini.
I mean, I'll tackle this one now because it's my number 2. Um, so this is, yeah, I've said what I said before, that I ranked this pretty high in our sequel discussion. And I think it's because it is so strange in relation to what you're expecting from not just a horror movie or not just a child's play movie, but from anything. And it only gets better every time you watch it. It doesn't ever get worse, or it doesn't fatigue yet to me, because I just always find something different that I'm kind of enjoying about it. And maybe it's because I think Don Mancini always wanted to bring an element of camp to the series. And it's
Oh
kind of
boy,
like, and like, I think that that's just him being able to do, like, this is mine now and I'm going to do what I want with it. And boom, this is what you're going to get. And I think that, again, having not seen the second season of Chucky, did a pretty damn good job of taking all these crazy ideas from, Cult and Curse of Chucky and weaving that into a pretty killer season 1. So I have faith in him, and I would love to see him do some sort of, Twilight Zone opening, or like when you ever see the Spawn cartoon series on HBO where Todd
oh yeah,
McFarlane would get in, he's like, "Hi, I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn." He's like in a dark room, brooding comic artist. It's like, it's kind of really funny to
like
see
he's gonna
now.
mug you. Like, hey, I'm Todd McFarlane. I
Like,
see
hey,
you.
I draw Spawn.
Yeah,
But like
you want
he
Spawn?
and he always would say like these really like obvious things, like Spawn is a story about good and evil. Good night. And I'm like, okay, wow. Well, I mean, I
Cool.
love Todd McFarlane, but it's funny now because he was at the peak of his star was burning hot in the atmosphere, and he was so high on his own farts in this show that like it was just it. But anyway, yeah, I see to Chucky's my number 2, and I agree with everything you said, and only adding that it's such a fun strange, entertaining movie, and everyone seems to be having a good time doing it, making it. So
Mhm.
with that, what's your
Oh, did you give your number four?
yeah, I'll give my number four. So Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. Um,
I still haven't seen that one, but it's on my list. It
it's
looks
not the
like a
first. It's not the first to kind of diverge from or like kind of fork
no.
from
I
the
kind of give it up after like the third, kinda, but yeah, that franchise is barely a franchise, but
I
yeah,
mean, that fifth one though, Mickey Rooney is your big bad. And there's so much that's fucked up about the premise, and you're like, they're not gonna go for it. And they do, like they absolutely do. Not so much in like the overly gory ways. There's certainly some good kills in there, but it's kind of just like the ideas. You're like, oh, that's silly. Why they're not gonna follow through with oh, they are. Okay. Wow, okay. That and it's very cheap. So the whole time you're like, this is not a bad idea. It's just executed in a very strange way, almost as if no one knows what they're doing, but everyone's trying their hardest to figure it out. And Mickey Rooney is unhinged in this, like in a way that
should
you can
be.
just see it the first time you see him. His eyes are wild, you know, and it's not. Um, it's really entertaining. It's not a good movie. Again, very few of the movies on this list, I'd say, are actually on mine. About half of them, I would say, were really good movies, even though you can't really
Yeah,
split a five and a half. But like, you
two and
know,
a half, but yeah,
yeah, but like more a little more than half would be considered good movies. But yeah, Sound Night Deadly Five Night Five, it is it's got everything you want for a holiday horror movie. It's got a demented toy maker, it's got toys that kill, it's got automatons, it's got Mickey Rooney, it's got children that can't act, it's got parents that don't look like their parents, it's got people that make questionable decisions, it's got a town that, doesn't make sense. Lots of just sleazy characters existing in this wholesome world. Like it's just like a Lifetime movie that someone spilt some heroin and meth on. And I kind of like it about it. But I think it's on Tubi, and I know that Vestron has the 3, 4, and
it's not
5
shut
coming.
too.
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
just on Shutter now, and there's that Blu-ray coming from the Vestron. So I've already pre-ordered that. That's happening.
of course. More Vestron releases. Did they take some time off? Right?
I think it's just one guy who's just like, I'm keeping this
Okay.
alive, and I'm going. He's like not going down. He's
Thanks,
like not going
guy.
down with the ship. He's like, I'm not letting these titles go loose.
You're doing the Lord's work. By the way, I pre-ordered my Vinegar Syndrome Roadhouse like over a month ago, and I still don't know what the special features are. I assume that they're all like being grandfathered in, but I'm not getting rid of my old one if the new one doesn't have the Kevin Smith commentary because that is delightful. But I digress.
I love
Um,
Roadhouse.
oh, Roadhouse. So my number three um, is missing a second act. And I've heard people say that before, and it's true, but it's fine. If anything, it stimulates the grindhouse experience you get where, like, oh, they just forgot to put in a reel. And that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is one of the
What do
weirdest.
you mean? It's missing a
It,
second act.
I mean, because
Just
they
kidding.
go right
It
from the
is.
radio. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I know that, Toby Hooper filmed some stuff with Joe Bob Briggs, but he didn't get it finished or whatever. Whatever. I still have the Vinegar Syndrome Special Edition. But it's just, it feels like it, it feels like it was made in defiance of the people who wanted to make it. Like, first of all, no one's asking for this, but Canon Film Group was like,
We got this
okay,
money here.
we are asking for this, and I want to be a fly on the wall for that meeting with Toby Hooper, where he's like, you want me to make a sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And you're going to pay me. All right, let's see what I can do. And he comes up with this weird batshit. I don't even know if I can call it a horror comedy in retrospect because it's not really trying to be a comedy. It's just trying to be gross and outlandish and hopefully make you laugh. Like Toby Hooper's not a comedy director, but it's just such a, what's the word, like an overcompensation for what he felt people didn't understand about the original, that he's like,
Oh,
he's
like, oh,
just,
you didn't get it? Let me make it really obvious.
and it's like, you know what, dude, maybe we were fine getting what we got from it, but still, it's, it's got Tom Savini's gore, it's wacky, it's
Dennis
loopy.
Hopper with double chainsaws. At the him at the chainsaw store. There's a chainsaw store, which is just
I swear to God, like I think they gave him both of those chainsaws to rev throughout the movie so he wouldn't fall asleep. Like, because he is not giving it his all, but it is great to see him. And it's just like it's it's made by someone who can't believe they're making a sequel to their previous film, but is taking the opportunity to just do completely batshit stuff with it, and somehow not ruining the legacy of the original. Which I wonder if back then people thought that's what would happen, but it didn't. So yeah,
they
Texas
knew, but
Chainsaw
people
Massacre.
knew exactly what they were getting with that poster. They knew that this was not their
Ten
1970s
films
Texas.
did it, but
Yeah.
yes, everyone else did. Yeah,
And you know what it reminds? It's like in a similar vein, Toby Hooper doing Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, kind of begrudgingly and almost taking the piss out of it, is like when Joe Dante said, "I'll never make another Gremlins movie," and then eventually they made him make
yeah.
another Gremlins movie, and he gave him Gremlins 2, and
Mhm.
they gave him full. And while Gremlins 2 didn't end up on my list, it was very close because
Yeah, it
Gremlins
almost
2 is so underrated in so many ways, and
one of the
Joe
best sequels
Dante, he
ever.
might be a better comedy director than a horror director because he
Yeah,
knows his way how to make, like, the whole thing is so good and it's still so funny. And so anyway, it kind of reminds me of that when he just was like, I'm gonna make the movie that you really don't want, but
mhm.
I'm gonna do it because it's gonna make me happy, pissing you off, making basically a live action Looney Tunes with Gremlins.
I've always said that Key and Peele sketch about Gremlins 2, it's funny, but it misses the point because the movie agrees with you. Like,
yes.
you could have made that sketch about any other crazy sequel from the 80s or early 90s, but your target is one that's like, yeah, we got there first. Like, we know. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
We put the pie on our own face, guys.
yeah, you're
Well,
late. Yeah.
my number three is Return of the Living Dead Part Three. A lot of number threes I found in this kind of creating this list that seem to fall in this weird area of like let's date outside our age range for a bit, you know. And Return of the Living Dead 3 is kind of like all the history of obviously like the Dead franchise being split between Romero and Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon getting the ability to say of the living dead, and Romero getting the, you know, time of day, it seems. Uh, is like the first one is a, you know, Return of the Living Dead is the one of the best, if not easily a top 5 horror comedy. Return of the Living Dead 2 is a more interesting story than movie, but I have a soft spot for it because it's essentially the first, like, what if we made the first movie a kids movie? Um, then you get, and the reason why it turned out that way is because Lorimar was a family video company. It's a fascinating story if you read about how Return of the Living Dead 2 came to be, and then you also makes you appreciate what you end up getting. But
Yeah.
and I know you have the Scream Factory special edition back there because, as every good fan should. But Return of the Living Dead 3, I actually saw. I never saw. I saw it like with my teens. I remember it was really grossed me out. I was like, this movie's fucking sick. And um, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have the scale that the other movies have, where an entire town is being consumed by the trioxin or whatever the hell it's called. This is more kind of like my girlfriend's back and now she's a zombie. Hey nah, by Brian Yunza. And like to that end, it's got like Brian Yunza level gore,
As it
and
should.
as it should. And there's some body modification that happens in the back half of this movie that is just absolutely like it. That's not my kink, so there's no kink shaming on this show. But if it is yours, God bless you. But I was just like, wow, that's gross. And it's so goopy, and there's a lot of this visceral gore in this one, and because of that, I haven't watched it that many times. I think I just had like this really weird experience seeing it for the first time. I was like, oh, this movie kind of weirds me out. But it is really well made, and it's kind of very tender too. Like you actually kind of like you feel bad for this boyfriend, even though no one would really make this kind of decision. I tell you right now, I love my wife, but if she died, I would not be bringing her to the chemical factory to turn into a zombie. Um,
Same.
I have an entire collection of movies behind me that would laugh in my face as to why I'm making that decision.
Not a wife guy, are you, Matt?
Very much a wife guy, just not a wife trying to eat me guy. And having to feed my wife other people's body parts for her sustenance. The Santa Clarita Diet showed me everything I need to know about what the funny looks like. This is like more of the horrific version of that. But that's my number 3, Return of the Living Dead, Part 3.
Cool. My number 2, going along with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, is a sequel nobody wanted, but somehow turned into something I would say better anyway, better than it has any right to be, is Psycho 2, which is, maybe like the most, I can imagine when it was first announced, people are like, no, just don't do it. Don't
Imagine if
stop.
the internet would have existed then. Would have never got made. It would have never got made.
No, it'd be unbearable. But it's not like the first one at all. Completely different, central character, who is still the same character. And it's still very, very Hitchcockian. Like it is absolutely a Hitchcock movie. It's just a different Hitchcock movie. And like to do like a Where Are They Now for one of the most famous horror films, one of the most loved films of all time, and to have it even be halfway decent is a miracle in and of itself. But it's actually pretty good. It has the baggage of the first one, and it starts with the shower scene from the first one, which it really shouldn't. Like, reference it if you want, but I always thought that was a mistake. But yeah, it's good. Great performances, not, and especially for the time that it came out in, it's not what you think you're going to get in terms of 80s horror. But it's just really well made, scripted by Tom Holland, I believe.
Yeah.
Friday Night Child's Play fame. So yeah,
I agree with you on Psycho 2, because I think Psycho 2 is the perfect example of how to make a sequel to a movie that doesn't need one. Because it pays respect to the characters while takes things in a different direction, and does so in a clever way by using the elements that are germane to the story without adding anything to it that lore-wise that changes anything about what Psycho set the table for. Like there's some,
the ending kind of does, but then they undo that in Psycho 3, which is actually really funny.
And Psycho 3 is actually quite good as well. Like I almost put Psycho 3 on my list. It's so icky in some parts, but it's a good one. And I think the Psycho franchise is actually it's the one that I've seen the least of. But I definitely want to go back and do a rewatch of those. This might be a good
franchise at all, but it turns into this great examination of Norman Bates. And it's like they keep passing the ball till they get that field goal. And actually, like Psycho 4, I think it ends really well.
That's the one where he calls into the radio show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like and I've heard the Bates Motel show is good. I think I gave it a start. I tried it on the first episode. I liked it, but I just, TV is not my bag sometimes. So anyway, but my number 2 is Siege of Chucky. So we're not going to need to rehash that one because we already spoke about it. So what's your number 1?
I think it's probably your number 1 too, if I'm thinking what I'm thinking. New Nightmare?
I don't know. It's no.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
that's a good one.
But a lot has been said about this, but I really don't think it's a film that has been examined as much as it really should have been, because there are no other movies like it, like none in any genre. And like for Wes Craven to be like, yeah, we're just going to get rid of all of that. It's going to take place outside that continuity. And I'm just going to do this. Take it. You're welcome. And nobody knew what that fuck they were in for when they saw it. I mean, it's an unheard of miracle of a film,
He
and
made
it's
he I love his reason for doing it, and I think he accomplished it. Freddy wasn't scary, so I made Freddy scary again. And
yeah,
that is so like when I think about a creator caring for their creation, like
mm,
I think Craven, well, I think that of the horror auteurs of the 70s and 80s, I think Craven and Carpenter, I think I would always put Carpenter above Craven largely because I just like more of Carpenter's movies, and he was on a
yeah,
real hot streak like in the 80s. But Craven's movies, there's a heart there that is sometimes absent in some of Carpenter's films, and other like De Palma's films even sometimes feel cold. Whereas like like even in New Nightmare, there's a sweetness to what's happening. And you if you didn't like Heather Langenkamp before, you're sure as fuck gonna like her by the end of New Nightmare. Because she is just the most kick-ass mom.
and she's a
And
better actress, ironically playing herself in
yeah,
this one than others. But yeah, mhm.
but it's just I just love that the premise was I'm gonna make Freddy scary again, and he did it. And I yeah, I it's not my number one, but I could totally see why it would be. Um I picked Exorcist 3. Um
Oh, okay,
I
yeah.
almost put Exorcist 2 on here, but Exorcist 2 still
No,
has
you did.
Reagan in it. I
Don't
almost did.
fucking lie to me.
I almost
You
did.
like this
No, no,
too?
no, no, no. Not because I liked it, but because of how went off the rails it is. But it still has to do with
Oh,
Reagan. And so there's still some continuity from the first. But when I think about Exorcist 3, it has very little to do with the first movie, save for a character and some references.
it's just like another story set in the same universe, like Prometheus, kind of.
Exactly. But it's also like, it's a really good movie. Like, it's a very, very good movie. And it's almost like it's the perfect supernatural thriller because it never really shows its hand as to what's going on. And you don't need to know. Like you don't actually need to know if what's happening is real or not real, imagined or not, because it's so effective and good. And aside from being home to one of the best, jump scares of all time, it's just a
Absolutely.
really well made movie that's extremely well acted with amazing performances from George C. Scott, from Brad Dourif. It's just damn good, and it's so different, and so much so that like I don't think I saw The Exorcist 3 until about somewhere around like 8 years ago, I want to say, because it's nothing about it drew me in, and
You
even the
just
cover art.
know that it's great. That
Yeah,
eventually,
you just hear like it just like yeah, eventually someone tells you how good it is, you're like, really? And then your curiosity is like, okay, well, I gotta see it now. And then you see it and you're like, holy shit, the hype is real. And it's also just a fun rewatch because of those really good dialogue can be just as tense as really good action. And the dialogue scenes in here carries just as much emotional and tension weight as almost anything else that scares you in the movie itself, to the point that like when you get great actors giving great lines, you get really, really good shit happening. And I think it's just so out there. Even the other ones that came after it, the Dominion and whatever the other one was, those still
yeah,
tried to kind of ape the original. I'm sure that the Bloomhouse ones are going to try and do the same by having some continuity with the Reagan story, since they have what's her name coming back,
Ellen Burstyn.
Ellen
For
Burstyn. So
yeah,
so anyway, I just thought Exorcist 3 is just such a good movie, but also one that is so different than the entire like what it's supposed to be, because it's not really a possession movie. It's like a possession movie and serial kill, and it's a possession giallo, if you can call it that.
yeah, yeah, kind of.
So,
That was
well, that's
cool.
our five. Is there any on here that you're like, oh man, I wish it would have made the list and it didn't?
I mean, I was thinking about Gremlins too, but I mean, Gremlins 2, it knew what it was doing. This is, it was less of a swing than it was like a calculated move, you know? And honestly, I did want Halloween Ends on here. It's just still so new, and I
Yeah.
just kind of want how it ages. I think it will age remarkably well. Like I stand by it, and I'm gonna try to watch 1, 2, and 3. I mean, hell, I could do it tonight. I mean, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends back to back, just to see what the effect would be. But ask me again in a few years, and will probably be on the list.
I hope you have a drink, an adult beverage by you when you're going through that trilogy back to back to back.
I
Because
shall.
um and I was gonna actually think about Halloween. I was actually surprised that neither of us put Halloween 3 on this list because it is, by definition, like the most off the rails franchise film, at least as far as
Yeah,
like
but it's
how it was
not.
received.
But it's not though. It's like a rights thing. It was just and Mustafa Akkad says this in a documentary that if they just called it Season of the Witch, no Halloween 3, it would be like it wouldn't have taken so long to have caught on as an incredible film. And I think I saw one guy, an artist, make a poster for Halloween 3, but it was just called Season of the Witch, and I'm like, yeah, more of that. I know Halloween 3 sells it, but like recognize this as its own thing. We're not trying
Yeah.
to innovate Myers. We're not trying to like give some more crazy cult backstory. It's just like we have the name. We're going to another planet with it. We're not even like going to try something crazy on this one.
Yeah, it's almost like a Halloween presents, Season of
Yeah,
the Witch kind of thing. But I get you.
perfect. Yeah.
Well, that's our top five. As we're coming up on the holidays, I'm sure we'll have some conversations about some holiday horror movies, probably recap our favorites for the next favorites of 2022. But for now, for those celebrating this week, happy Thanksgiving. And Lowell, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. And
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
thank you.
Pet the
And
cat for me.
I'm sorry.
Pet the cat for me.
Oh yeah, she's around here somewhere doing cat stuff, mainlining some nip, I'm sure. But with that in mind, for now, be good, eat turkey or some meat alternative, and watch horror movies.
Oh
Adios.
yeah. Later.